What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up, everybody? Super excited for another episode with another difference maker in the studio here. Again, and you've heard me say this time and time again, my favorite part of business is the relationships. And I got to meet Cody through a friend, Julie Smith, who was like, "You got to meet this guy," and said to both of us we had to meet each other. And Cody came to my office. We were sitting and talking, and he was telling me about his start into his business, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and some of his really cool passions with his business and overarching dreams. I'm like, oh my God, we need to have you on, just sitting and talking about this, kind of that going from working a job to starting a business, and where you start at to where you ultimately end up building. And so super cool. And then I got to know Cody really well over the last couple of months since he's been booked on, because he's been part of the objection handling boot camp, which has been really awesome. Mm-hmm. I've got to kick Cody's ass here a couple of times. So grateful. All good stuff. So man, Cody, welcome to the studio.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. I really do.
Man, it's my pleasure. I know you're not a rookie at this. This is a couple of times, second time in the studio here?
Yep, second time here. I've done a couple other ones, but this is the only place I've been like on camera. So it's like a little nerve-wracking, but not too bad.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, there's that many times that entrepreneurs are able to have that opportunity to get on camera, to have a time to tell their story, talk about like what lights them up. And so that's one of the things that I get extreme joy on. I was talking about a little bit ago about how it's like on every Monday, it's that I get to do thing. Mm-hmm. It's like so exciting to be able to sit down with somebody that I really like, get to know more about their story. And then like the turnaround of that after having a really cool conversation is being able to put out video clips to really, highlight that person and highlight our conversation that highlights them, but also stories are data with soul. When you're sitting and you're telling your story, other people are finding hope, so the person that's sitting there and working a job, for example, that's like, man, I could never start a business woodworking. I could never start a business doing this thing I love. Like, that's wrong, right?
Yeah. And we really appreciate you having this and people having Rob having this studio for people to hear our voice, because, this isn't what we excel at. So it's great having other people here that do excel in podcasts and getting your name out there to just help us out.
This is really cool. And I've called Rob and kind of this studio. I've compared it a lot of times to like Motown and Berry Gordy. Like there's so many cool people that have the talent to host a podcast, or I've always had that dream, and they're able to put other people on platforms like the Putkellas who had you on, and and then like we've built relationships. So like when they were looking for somebody to have on their show, Angela reached out to me, and I'm like, I just had this awesome conversation with Cody, and he's going to be on my podcast, but you should have him on because I think it'd be a good fit.
Yeah, it was literally, I think the day before, and you texted me like, hey, can you be on this podcast tomorrow? And I'm like, somehow I'm going to make time to do this. Sure, why not? And it was great meeting them, being here. They're fantastic.
Yeah, but it's one of those like, Berry Gordy and Motown, how you have all this collaboration. You have people that are great at what they do, and then as they work together, that steel sharpens steel. And so I look at, just even when I talk about the relationships and the other entrepreneurs and boot camp and the situations like my Cirrus Net group, where it's getting around those other entrepreneurs and that steel sharpens steel.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So man, tell me about your story. Tell me
where do you want me to start? How far back you want me to go?
Yeah. So I guess what led you into your business? What were you doing before that?
So, I used to be in the restaurant. I was in there for almost a decade, different kitchens. Gotten a job at U of M, cooking there. Met my wife there. We actually had to hide our relationship for like almost 2 years. The HR knew and her boss knew, but other people wouldn't have been happy. And I was just at work cooking in a union atmosphere. I was miserable. I thought, I have it made getting into the U. And then I realized very quickly, man, I don't want to do this. I love doing woodworking and stuff like that. And that was always kind of a dream. And after like 2.5 years, I think, being there, I went and worked at a cabinet shop, a local cabinet shop. And I was there for 7 years. Long story short, I was planning on taking over the company. My name was in the will. But at the end of the day, every day I'd go in, I was just miserable and I didn't want to be there. And I was sick of feeling like I'm not when I'm at home, I'm like my own man. But when I go there, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, this little boy that something was missing.
Mhm.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, there has to be more than this. Right. Like, I like what I do, but I just want more. And I want to do more of the custom woodworking, not just plywood cabinetry, things like that. And so I just kept trying to figure out what to do. And my wife's like, open an Etsy shop. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I opened an Etsy shop, and within like a few weeks, I sold a coat rack for $86, got shipped to South Dakota. I started crying when I sold it. I went to my parents to drop my kids off, and my mom's like, "Oh, it says you have one sale," because she was just looking at it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?" And I looked, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And like, I literally just left and like started crying and like called my wife because I was like, "Babe, like this, I sold something. Like this might like actually turn into something. Like a door opened, right? A sign of hope and faith happened." And so I just started building more decor things and started selling and selling and selling. But then it got to the point like I didn't like building the decor. I wanted to do bigger things and things that I took more pride in, things that, I could really sit back and be like, yes, I built that instead of, oh, I build coat racks. That's not that there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
but that's where I was. I knew I could excel greater than that. And so, fast forward to July of 23, I ended up quitting my job for my LLC. I was still doing decor. And then that broke into something bigger when I joined the Woodpreneur Network. And what that is, the creator of that is Steve Lazier. He's based out of Chicago, and he gets people out of their little thinking and their little mind. So I never use social media
Yep.
ever in my life. And I listened to a podcast, and it was funny because I was listening to them and I was like, man, there's a lot of guys out there that just like me, they just have their full-time jobs and this little gig. And he's telling people like, you got to get on Facebook, you got to put your name out there. And I was just hiding in the closet the whole time. I didn't want to do that. And finally I started listening to him, and fast forward to now, I was just on his podcast a month ago, which was, a year and a
Full
half ago,
circle.
I would have been like, man, I can't believe I would be awesome to be on that podcast. But he really opened up my eyes. Just there's so much more out there, and you don't have to be at this alone, you know. So now I build
Huge.
custom furniture, mainly tables, dining tables, conference tables, mantles. I
How
can
did
go.
you find Woodpreneur? And it's Steve, you said?
Yeah, Steve Lazier.
Uh
I probably say it wrong. I always say it wrong.
huh.
It's just a podcast. It was the Woodpreneur Network podcast. And
Yeah.
I just started listening to it over and over and over. And then they did this kind of challenge thing, like how to make, 10 grand in 15 days. I made zero, but that was because of the lack of knowledge I had and everything. But what it was like, post, do this, do that. And so it jump started. And that was the whole thing. You're jump starting your mindset to opening. And then that was in November of 23. And then February of 24 is when I joined the Woodpreneur Network. And that's when it really started taking off, of diving in. And after a while, like, I didn't want to post. But then after a while, I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm looking at this, it's a storefront for my business.
5,000%.
But the great thing is I met so many incredible people. Like,
Yeah.
think of like, for example, James from My Wife's Candles, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I've recently met him. He's fantastic. There's so many people that I've met. And at the time, it was, why would you be interested in a candle person, right? But it's so much more than that. Like, I don't just have to know sawmill people and in my industry. There's so many areas, different people that can help you out. And it's great to surround yourself by empowering people compared to just sitting in your garage by yourself. And, I used to sit there and drink all the time and boo hoo me. But then I got sober and I don't drink. I'm a year and a half sober. And that's
Dude,
when I quit my job and started my LLC. So,
I have a ton of questions from that, but big one with that, like where was that point, or what was that breaking point? What was that thing that that said where you said, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to quit my job? Like, what was that life event that spurred that?
oh, okay. So, yeah, I'd come home and just, I don't know, have a crappy day. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to stop and get bigger, things like that. And the big change, and I knew I always wanted to change. And I knew like I wanted to be that guy waking up early and getting up at 4:30 and going for a run or doing certain things. And but what would hold me back is, I might come home and get drunk and then not go out in the morning
Yeah.
or even a few beers, you feel groggy. But the big thing that changed is, I believe it was June 10th. I, was partying all weekend with my buddies. Next day, I had a seizure, and I've had a handful of seizures, and it was only like the day after I would drink. And so, I believe when I had one, I was holding my son, who at the time was 6 months old, which he's completely fine, if anyone's wondering. But I
Yeah.
cannot, I'm not positive that's what happened. But that's when that happened, I was like, yeah, no, I keep having these excuses that I want to have you know, be a better father and be a better husband and really start taking my business seriously, but I'm not even taking myself seriously. So when that happened, I was like, I will never get drunk again. But I was like, yeah, I might have a beer. So
Hmm.
I didn't touch anything for like 8 months. And then went on an ice fishing trip. I had 2 beers on a Friday. And in between that, I had food. And the next day I had one tall boy out when we were out fishing. And, so I was really proud of that. Like, you go on an ice fishing trip, you got a bunch of guys drinking, you have a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than 4 beers over a
Oh yeah.
weekend, right?
Yeah.
Well, the following day I had another seizure. So I feel like that was a sign saying, hey, you're not going to start this, even though you think you might be able to have a beer here and there. We're not going to go down this road. And so that when it was official, like, yep, never again. And it really, through that 8 months is when I started developing getting up early, starting consistent. And then once that happened, it was just like, let's go, right? Let's do this. Let's set a good example. And, that's kind of where it went. And now there's a lot of room for improvement. But now I am that guy getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, going for a run, working with, F3, as you know, and
Yeah.
just trying to do my best. But I also know there's still a lot more room for improvement for me to grow and keep this going.
What's so awesome about that though, and like I've been in your shoes where it's like living the same day over and over again. It's a hypnotic rhythm, right?
Hmm.
Like it's just you get up, you go to work, you pet the dog, like, or you come
Yeah.
home, you pet the dog, you eat dinner, you drink a couple beers, like, and then it's just like that repeat. And every day you want to get better, and every day you're like tomorrow,
Yep.
and then but nothing really shakes it up. But it's interesting, like something in your life comes along where it's like really captures your attention, but then you find this whole new clarity when it happens.
For sure, for sure. And I've had them in the past when I was in my early 20s and stuff, but now with kids and everything else and really
It's
trying
a
to
whole different.
focus on myself and
Yeah.
but it's been great. It got me out of that comfort zone. And like I said, I started eventually I got out of the mindset of worrying what people think and just going for it. Just if you don't support me, that's fine. Most people do.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've surrounded myself with a lot of great people, but just going for it, like posting on social media,
Yeah.
So it's been quite the journey.
One, it's awesome because I talked about Julie introducing us, but I had seen you on social media way before that
Oh,
posting.
okay.
You. It's funny because you had said like that you had never posted on social media, and I was the same exact way. In fact, when I look back at my Facebook memories from like 12, 13 years ago, it's funny. Like I'll have like a post that's like like one or two people liked or whatever. And there's like family members or something. It's like I never posted stuff. And do you ever have it now where like people are like, oh, you're just a natural, or like like because you put so much out there.
I
And
don't know if I've had anyone say like you're a natural or things like that, but I actually was talking to Steve last week about like, I'm a year into this journey, a year and a half in, and yet, I'm just, it's a constant grind, right? I'm struggling here. I want so much, but like, financially things are hard.
Yeah.
And he just looks at me. He's like, dude, he's like, you need to look at where you were a year ago when you were just building coat racks out of, your little shop. And now you're building whale tables and big tables. And on top of that, you have like started becoming, a name in your community, and you're a content creator. You can't forget that little things. And I was like, right, I know. And so I respect that. And I know I've came a long way. I really do. But there's still that part of me that's like the last couple weeks, especially with the holidays around the corner, I'm like hungry, dude. I'm hungry. And it's hard for me to say this because I haven't been at it that long, but like parts of me like feel broken. And so now I'm like, hey, you got to flip the script. What you're doing is great. And what you did was a good start. But now, dive in. You got your feet wet. You understand a little bit. But now quit messing around. And I don't know what that looks like, Jason, but it's time for me to seriously start taking shit seriously.
Yeah.
So just got to figure out the hows and the who's.
Well, and it's all those elements of growth, because to Steve's point, into like that reflection of like, look at how far you've come.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from being the guy in the kitchen at U of M,
Yeah.
thinking like I've always wanted to do this one thing, to doing that thing,
Yeah.
going out on your own, posting, getting out of your way and posting on social media. There's so much, but I love your recognition and your awareness of like, there's a whole other level there.
There's a whole, yes. Like I said, I feel like I got through the first level, or I'm in the first level, and it's time to step it up and fully commit. Even though I feel like I'm fully committed, there's that side of my brain that's like, no, you're kind of still being a little bitch. You got to go. You got to go harder. I just got to figure out how to do that and who can help me do that. And by meeting all these people,
Yeah.
Yourself, so many people I've met, they are the people who are going to keep pushing me and help me. I'm not, sometimes you feel like you're all alone, but you're not alone. You just have to get out of that mindset that you are alone and keep on going.
I think that if you're doing this and you feel it, and if you're truly all alone, that you're doing it wrong, obviously. And I've said that over and over again on this message. And I kick off and saying my favorite thing about this whole thing is the relationships. The people I'm around all the time now, except for my, my family, obviously, are people I didn't know 7 years ago when I started my business. And thinking about those relationships and how they've changed my life and cultivated my life. Just even this, like, we're approaching 200 episodes. And so you think about like, there's almost 200 people that I've sat down in this chair with and interviewed, and like what I've learned and grown from them.
That's awesome. For sure. And like, you think like in the beginning, you think like, oh yeah, no, I have my network of few people, friends that are going to be like supporting me and, screaming my roar out, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's not that they don't support you, but they're not on the same path as you. And so I've met so many people that I'm like, why would a stranger want to support my business? Why would this person want to like push me to be better when I don't even know you?
Yeah.
But it's just because I didn't know any better. I didn't know there were so many people out there that like, just because we're not in the same business, that they want to see me freaking crush it, and that's great.
And what I love about it is it goes right back to the beginning when I talked about the steel sharpens steel, because once you meet a different quality of person, like this other quality of person doesn't like cut it anymore. And it's not to say like certain people are better, like it's just a different level. And again, like there are crabs in the bucket that like want to pull you down. They don't want to see you succeed. There's just, it's nothing to do with you, everything to do with what's inside them and, and how they see themselves. Right. Versus the people out here, and there are even entrepreneurs that are in that crab in the bucket. There are so many people out here that's like the village. They want to support you. They want to help you.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
It is.
It really is.
It really is. Again, this is it makes getting up and doing the entrepreneur thing, because you talked about that struggle, that being hungry, that if you don't get up and go to work today, if you don't do these things, like
exactly,
you're not making money.
No, you're not. And That's what I mean about the fully commit thing. You just doesn't matter what day it is or this or that. You just got to keep at it. And do I take a day off? Yeah, because mainly I'm going to respect my wife and my family as well. And my kids out there, Daddy, are you going to come play, hang out yet?
Yeah.
All right. You know what? This can wait a little bit. I'm going to go hang out with you for a little while.
Yeah.
It's important. And trying to, and it almost sounds selfish, but sometimes when I am hanging out a lot with my family, I'm constantly thinking about work. And that's a struggle that I'm trying to mentally figure out how to get around.
Yep.
Because I want to be there enjoying those moments. But I'm like, oh, that's right. I got to do this. Or, oh, I should be doing this, whatever it might be. So I think that's just a challenge that I got to work on myself,
It's being aware is a huge part, a huge part of that. Again, that awareness is huge. Knowing that you want to get better at that and sensing it. It's having those work hours and knowing that these are my work hours, and then when I'm out, I've got to put it away.
Yep, it's just putting it away.
It's putting it away. And maybe you have a notebook or something that because you have a good idea that pops up. You don't want to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't want to dwell on it. And so if you write it down, jot it, like now when you're ready and you're in your zone, you can go back to that space.
Yeah. And like, I'll pull out my phone, but you know how it is once you pull out your phone, it like just grabs you. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to put this in there.
I know it is.
I wanted to go back though, when you said like, oh, you were at the hospital and went there and now you're here. I remember before I started this, and I think I was telling you this when we first met, my buddy and I were hanging out and just BSing. I'm like, oh, it'd be sweet to like take a tree and turn it into furniture, right? But like, I wasn't even doing woodworking. Like, I probably built a birdhouse or something, but like,
yeah.
And like, we would talk about how cool that would be, but never did I really envision myself doing that. And then this past year, when someone asked me, they're like, hey, I have this black walnut tree in my house that, I'd hate to see it just go in the fire pit or get chopped up. Is there anything you can do with it? And I'm sitting here like, man, I don't have the machinery. I don't have the stuff I need to do with it. So I went to her and I was like, hey, I got an idea. You obviously got to pay to get the tree cut down. If you pay to get someone to mill it and dry it, I will capitalize on the wood and I will build you a table for free if you pay these other expenses. And they thought about it for a minute and they loved the idea. So I made some phone calls. It was actually really easy. Shout out to Jordan Hasbrook and Chester from Terra Shape Tree Service. They came, cut it down. They took it back to my house. And then another guy, Scott Stanley from 315 Milling, he came, milled it, did a fantastic job. And it's been sitting on my property since June. And in a couple months, there's another guy I'm going to contact that's going to go into the kiln. And then probably closer to spring, I'll end up making her a table out of it. And same thing with my family. Like, we had an elm tree that's just been dead. My wife's kind of asked me a couple times, like, hey, can we get that cut down? So Jordan actually was like, hey, can you make me a few signs for his business? And I was like, you want to cut that tree down?
Yeah.
Like, which I could have cut it down, but I was like, heck, you're going to do it better. Yeah. And the hard part is I needed it transported to the other side of my yard, and I can't pick up a 2,000-pound log, So he was like, yeah, sure. So making that connections with people where I made him a few signs and he cut a tree down and moved it for me. And all of that furniture will be strictly for my house, which is awesome.
That's so awesome.
10 years ago, I thought of the idea, which people do it. People do that. That's where wood comes from. That's where tables and furniture come from. But people don't talk about it that often. So it's just, I'm like, I want to build a table. I want to do a mantle for our house. I want to, put a new countertop in on the bathroom. But I'm like just waiting patiently for this wood so I can do that.
So did you have woodworking experience before that? You said you kind of liked it in the first place, or what was?
Mainly just the cabinetry.
Yeah.
That was about the only professional woodworking experience. Both of my grandparents were woodworkers, but it was all like birdhouses, things like that. And
yeah.
I always thought that was cool.
Yep.
Actually, one of the first things that I like remember making, I guess as an adult-ish in my 20s, my wife, Jessica, who's been my rock, she pushes me. I'd be screwed without her. She drives me crazy sometimes, but I love her to death, and vice versa on that, but
yep.
She collects salt and pepper shakers. So I made her like this little salt and pepper shaker, and I like got a router or salt and pepper holder. and I was going to write salt and pepper on it with my little router, but I ran out of room. So it just said salt and pep. And like, it was just two pieces of garbage wood with some nails in it. But you got to start somewhere. And then I made a mailbox, which was awful. Someone actually stole it from my house. Literally, I like went to the store and come back and my mailbox was gone. I like call my buddy because he was laughing at my mailbox because it was so crappy. And so I'm like, did you steal my mailbox? He's like, what? I'm like, I know you stole my freaking mailbox. So I like went over to his house, searching it as his garage, and they're just dying. And they think they're like, no, your wife took it because she was so embarrassed and she got rid of it. So, but that's kind of where it started, man.
That is so funny and it's so awesome. And it's like going back to like even the social media stuff. When I was asking about like when you first start out to where you are now, and I getting more and more comfortable by being consistent. But like starting off, and it's like you had no evidence that you'd be an amazing woodworker whatsoever.
Yeah, and even now, I'm like, I wouldn't stretch it that far. I'm not amazing, but like. I'm way better than I was, and I know I'm going to keep getting better and growing and growing. I think the difference now with being a business owner is instead of me getting mad every time I screw up and getting down on myself, I try to learn, and part of this is from boot camp. I try to learn what worked, what didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Furniture making is hard. It's very hard, and a lot of things can go wrong really quickly, and I screw up all the time. But it's about learning how to fix it and avoiding that mistake next time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't get mad and chuck a piece of wood through the shop. Now I'm just like, all right, you screwed that up. What can we do better? And that's where I'm at with my business right now. Is it's like, I'm putting it out there. I'm putting my name out there, getting it out there. But at the end of the day, I'm not getting the phone calls as I would hope. Business is slow. So I'm to the point where I'm like, feeling down and depressed about it. But now I have to say, okay, you need to find different avenues to make this work.
Yep.
You can't just throw in the towel and keep doing the same crap over and over because it worked in the beginning, but it's time to step it up and see what else you can do next.
It's that learning, and
Yeah.
I love that process again, like from boot camp. It's funny. It made me think like boot camp of people with anger management since 2024. Like chucking the wood through the window. And
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done that, but
No.
I've done some things. Hey, I'm going to take a little break here. I got something for you.
Oh, heck yeah.
Here's a little Christmas gift for you.
Oh, super awesome.
I don't know if you like it, but maybe.
This is really awesome.
Thank my wife for the wrapping.
I was gonna say, did you wrap
can't
this?
rap at all. She's the rapper of the family.
My wife taught me how to rap. She's amazing.
Well, you messed up. You just gotta let her rap.
I know, right? Now I've proven capable. Oh, dude. No way. That
Roar.
is badass.
For the
That
record,
is
I don't make
badass.
small decor anymore, but
I love that. That is
it'd be a good
awesome.
spot for you to hang up your shop.
That is going up for sure, man. That is awesome. That is good shit. That's when, and I asked that about like the woodworking because I grew up. My grandpa did all, I remember like the boot, like cowboy boot, like he help take out cowboy boots and stuff like that. He'd make that kind of stuff, mailboxes, birdhouses, all that kind of stuff, and I loved like just going down to the basement and like hanging out with him while he was doing that kind of stuff. And so I was wondering, how that, how like sitting there and thinking about, and like from your only experience really being building this mailbox that like your friends harassed you about, just sitting there and thinking about like, man, I'd love to take a tree and build some furniture out of it. Like that's really cool.
It's
journey.
definitely a big step, but it was kind of back to, not how can I do this, but who can help me do this? Because before I was looking down on myself like, oh, man, I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have that. And now I'm really trying to accept like, it's okay. I don't have everything. People will help me scale my business and I will get there. So it's like, just master my craft and, the milling and all that thing that will come when the time's ready. And when it's down the road, like I have a guy that's an expert at it. Why not help support his business?
Yeah.
And I know not only am I getting an awesome product, because if you don't know how to mill right, well, your wood's it's going to be terrible. Like I couldn't believe all the things that he was teaching me just for the one time that we did it. So like, why not master my craft for the furniture building, have other people help me along the way.
Yep.
And if that's a step I decide I want to do, which I want to one day, but I don't need to do that today. But at the end, it's okay if I need help. Before it was, I just looked down on myself, and now I'm like, it's okay to have people help you.
How do you get there? How do you get to that spot and like to where you want to be if you don't have people
Yep.
helping you get there?
You can't really. And that's kind of what I accepted. Like, yeah, I'm never going to get the big shop I want and do all the things I want if I'm just making little coat racks. I'm never going to have the things I want. And big reason I stopped making the small stuff as well is because I wasn't taking the pride in it. And that's not really fair to the customer.
Yeah.
I started
Yep.
like, yeah, whatever. And
Yeah.
that's not okay with me or how I want to treat the customer or my pride, I guess.
Yeah. So what was that? You're talking about going from the coat racks, doing the stuff like this to what's that learning curve, and what was that like to jump in and building the tables and the things that you're making now?
It was scary to say the least, but it was very like, like I was trying to learn. That was the first big thing I did. Literally the first big thing I did went from, a coat rack to these little dog feeders to, hey, let's take this tree down and make table out of it. It's the first thing I did. And it was huge. And I don't even know how to explain it, but it was a step that I was like, we're going to do this. Let's just go big. And hopefully it works out.
Like going big all the way to like milling the whole tree. And
yeah, it's been phenomenal. I'm really excited to build it, but again, the wood's got to dry for a little longer. So it's going to be a little minute.
But I was just seeing like the table, talking about building the wheel table. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So that was Justin Mulholland from 52 Blue. I met him at the Brighton Chamber meeting. I was there as a guest, and he was starting his company up, and he wanted a conference table. And, I didn't really think much about it. And then he contacted me a few months later and was like, hey, it's Justin. I want a table and I want it shaped like a whale. Can you do that? And I was just like, yeah, of course I could do that. Why not? So I talked to my metal fabricator. His name's also Cody Highfield from Trinity Fab Works. Phenomenal. Amazing. So what we did is we took the base, and his logo is a whale tail. So we took the base and we shaped it. He cut out metal, shaped it as a whale tail. And then the cross piece we wrote in 52 Blue. And at first I was just thinking, okay, you'd have a black cross piece and you cut out the letters 52 Blue numbers. And Cody was like, hey, let's put some stainless in between there so it will really pop. And I'm like, oh man, that's a great idea. Because if not, you won't really see it as good.
Yeah.
And then, so I had my good friend, Kevin Burkhart, he did like the CAD drawing to help visualize it for not only myself, but for Justin, say, hey, this is what we have. And I gave him a couple different options. And so I did one with just wood, and then for the top, just wood that was shaped like a whale tail, and another one that was wood with the blue epoxy going in it. And he's like, that's the one I want. I'm like, let's do it. And it turned out phenomenal. Like, I was very impressed with how it turned out. And the best thing I haven't really told people, but I might as well, that was actually like the first table I've built from scratch by myself in the shop. And it was amazing. I was very proud of it. Of course I could pick little things out, because that's just what you do.
Yeah.
Right. But
you're the one building it. You see like little tiny details, that kind of thing. We talked about that a little bit this morning.
Yeah. And of course, Kevin helped me with the drawing, and Cody helped me with the metal work, obviously, but it just turned out phenomenal. So that was kind of where I want to take my business, I think, is, a lot of businesses underestimate the quality of the furniture and the lasting impression that could leave on a client. So the first thing they see, if we'll take investors, for example.
Yeah.
If Jason, you're an investor, okay, let's say you're going to invest my money, and I walk into your business and I look around and it's really boring, and you got this wobbly table. Well, me personally, I'm going to think, how's he going to invest my money if he's not even investing in, you know, this properly?
Yeah.
Why is he going to go buy a cheap table from a big box store? I can't drop a name, but a big box store, and that's kind of how Justin looked at it as well. And that's what, really kind of stemmed this idea. Is like, yeah, I want to help businesses out because you're losing a lot of clients. If you walk in like you're all outdated furniture and things like that, and you walk in, guess what? That's the first impression you have. But if you walked in and they're already wowed by your atmosphere and the aesthetics of your room, like, hey, you already have a good talking piece and you already have one up, so it's a lasting impression on the business.
As you know, I talk about being the difference quite a bit. And as you're sitting and talking about that, I think of like those customized pieces, and I think that's what really stands out. You look at somebody like, where's he going to go find a whale table at
Hmm.
versus you can build that out and really build it to something that he absolutely loves. There's a whole story behind it. It's from somebody local that built it. It's a table that'll
Hmm.
last forever, and it ties into what companies out there are looking for something from some custom work. They know that by investing in their look of their business, that it pays off in the long run, and they're looking for that commercial, that custom person. Like this is the guy right here.
And those are the companies I'm trying to find. Um, I think it would be very beneficial, one for me, but for them
Yeah.
as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
if anyone's listening to this that's interested, get with me. I'd love to work with you and see what we can come up with to build furniture literally branded around your business.
Because like I love again going to it and can you make a whale tail and you figure it out and you use your resources to build them something that's beautiful.
Yeah. And we put all C channel, I actually have Cody started making me custom C channel, which what that is, to prevent the table from warping. So I recess it in the bottom and you can buy cheap stuff all over, but I'm trying to be like, hey, I'm trying to do as much locally sourced stuff as I can. And I know he's buying his steel. I don't remember where. I want to say it's Chicago, but I'm not sure. But he's buying it, the States. And so now not only am I
Mhm.
having custom legs made that's sourced here, now
Yeah.
all my C channel, which is solid, and he just made me a bunch of it. So now I don't have to like try to get custom stuff or wait for it. Like I have it, it's ready to go.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Again, the relationships, and it's like realizing again when you build that communication, when you build those
Yeah.
relationships that people will help out.
Well, and the best part about meeting him is my neighbor actually, I was talking to him and he's like, hey, I met this guy who was working on my car that does powder coating. And I'm like, oh, he gave me his number. And I called him. Well, it was end up being Cody's dad. And he's like, yeah, no, my son owns a metal shop and I do powder coating as well. And I'm like, oh, okay. He lives literally a mile and a half away from me, maybe 2 miles. And I met him probably, I don't know, 6 weeks before Justin asked me about the table.
Wow.
And I saw his shop and it's amazing. Much bigger than my shop. Like, well, he can literally do anything out of metal. It's very, very talented.
I love again how the world works and how people come together and how you'd never expect
Hmm.
how that even came about.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I was looking for metal guys too. It happened to be 2 miles from me, just because my neighbor, you know, needed some work done on his car, and some other guy gave him his card.
Crazy. It's crazy. And again, it's kind of looking, we talk about boot camp, like the signs being there, like it's a sign from God, sign from the universe, sign from whatever. It's like as you're going out and you're pursuing your dream and building your thing, there it opens the door and there's like the signs from God that
Hmm.
you're doing the right thing. You're on the right path.
You know, you just got to stay positive, even in the dark moments, and don't let the demons and the little voices take over. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to just break through, or as you would say, time to go eat faces. Just trying to break through that down point and keep pushing and try. Things aren't working, just sit back and figure out what's not working and how you can excel and make it work.
Yeah.
Don't just throw in the towel.
Don't just throw in the towel. Yeah, exactly.
Well, how'd you start this podcast?
How did I start this podcast?
Yeah, like what gave you the, I don't know, initiative to start a podcast?
So, a lot like you know, like, I wasn't big into social media. I was a direct sales director for a company, and I knew I wanted to start my business. I knew I wanted to write a book. I knew I wanted to start my business. I knew I wanted to be a speaker. I wanted to help other like small businesses. But I was well known in my industry, but I didn't want to stay in my industry. I wanted to go out and work with other. I was in the cellular industry. I
Mhm.
was tired of it, burned out of it. I didn't want to help it. And I didn't want to help other, I didn't want to become a consultant in that industry because I had watched other people like me that went out and started consulting other wireless companies. And it was very easy for them to just land at another job
Mm.
because they'd land one client that paid them a lot of money and then just said, you know, how about you just work for me? And every single time I watched them go back to another job and I'm like, I kind of want to burn these bridges. So kind of my long story that I haven't really talked about too much there, but I just didn't want to be in that industry anymore. So I'd come out in the world and I start networking. I hired a coach. I started building my business, and one of the things is I knew I needed to create content. I love standing up and speaking. All my people had told me you need to create videos, you need to do this stuff, and I thought it'd be so easy to do. I thought I'd love to do it, and then I got out and I realized that I really don't like talking to myself that much. Like it wasn't that much fun, and it wasn't even that I do it now. Like I ripped off an hour episode. I think you listened to the episode that I just recently
Yep.
did.
Great episode.
Thanks. So I've gotten a lot of good feedback on that one, so that's been cool. But I don't mind doing it now. But what I was doing is I was going out and I was having conversations with other entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, other just business owners that I saw going out there and doing awesome things. And I'd invite them to coffee just 'cause I wanted to pick their brain. I wanted to learn from them, especially other coaches and consultants. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing that you love? What are you doing that you'd never do again? Like, what's working, what's not working, all that kind of stuff. And I'd get these people's stories. They tell me these incredible stories. And from them, like over a bulk of time, I found myself learning and growing. I was becoming a better business owner. I was becoming a better husband. I was becoming a better father. I was applying a lot of the things I was learning from them. And it goes back to what I said, stories are data to a soul. Is I'm hearing their stories. One, it's like if they can make it, why can't I? So there's like a lot of
I
hope there, right?
Yep.
They started off with all these things on them, like going against them, and they figured it out. And so if they could figure it out, why can't I? We can all figure it out, right? And so it gives you that little bit of hope. It gives you a lot of stuff there. Now, the other thing I found out is nobody knows their stories. They weren't making content either. They're also trying to find a way to get their
Mm.
story and to create content. They're struggling at creating content. And like I said, I'd always be like, "Oh my god, that's an amazing story. I would have never known that about you." Nobody knows that about me. People think that I had one guest that came on here that was like, people think that I have a silver spoon. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. He was like, grew up with a single dad, and we were super poor. And he was like, I was living on my own when I was 16, and like just this whole story of like people don't know that, but man, people thought you were a badass before. Now they're like, that's a badass story. Like you're awesome, like it's just so anyways,
Everyone just sees the now.
they see the now.
They see the now.
They
They
see the
don't,
now.
they might look at someone who's, really wealthy and be like, oh, well, as we know, the favorite must be nice. And sure, some people had things handed to them,
Yep.
but so many people had to start at the graveyard. So many people. So, you can sit there and say it must be nice, but well, it must be nice for you to go to work from 9 to 5 and then come home and drink beer and bitch about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's my choice. It's your choice to, start a business.
Yep.
So, we don't need to, I'm not looking for other people's approval, I guess, but just don't say it must be nice because you don't know what's in the past.
I think there's a sector of people that's like, it must be nice, or they think that you own a business, so automatically you must have a ton of money and stuff like that. They don't understand. They've never walked in the shoes of the entrepreneur, and it is very obvious. Those that are on this inside, they know.
Mm-hmm.
We know the struggle. And so I guess even with that content stuff, it was like I saw that there was a problem there. And so what I did is I went out and I got a GoPro and I would come to conversations. And when I was in the coffee shop or somebody was at my office and we're having a really cool in-depth conversation, I'd be like, hey, do you mind if I pull my camera out and we make some content? And I'll just create a couple clips and put them out, tag you on social media. And people would always be like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so that just got rolling. So I started formulating it into just a intentional thing. I called it Coffee and Grit because my office was grit and lavender. And I figured I'd give an ode to Natalie who had the business. And I'm like, so I'll give a shout out because I'm using her coffee table in the kitchen. That's my home base. And I'm like, we're doing it early in the morning. So I'm like, that's what entrepreneurs need. They need a whole lot of grit and a whole lot of coffee to make it through the day, right? We need that caffeine and we need grit.
Yes, sir.
Because if not, it's easy to go back and work the job. It's easy to get down on ourselves. It's easy when you know you need to go to that next level to just go home.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that stuff. You need the grit.
I couldn't imagine going back though. Like,
Yes.
I going and working for someone else now, it sounds miserable. Honestly, it sounds miserable. And like part of this is that for some reason, randomly it clicked on me. I was yelling at my kid for something and constantly telling him what to do and constantly telling him what to do. And something clicked then. I've always known like there needs to be more. There needs to be more. There needs to be more. And something clicked. I'm like, man, the same thing kind of happens to me when I go to work. I kind of want to set an example here. Like you don't, and I didn't go and get yelled at, it wasn't like that, but like let's just say my ideas and thoughts were all garbage, right? And no matter what, it wasn't, oh no, we can't do that because of this,
Yep.
But, I kind of thought that like even my kid have an idea. I'm like, no. And now I try to be a lot more open about it, but like hit me, I'm like, yeah, I don't want my kids to grow up and think like this is the way, you don't need to be told what to do your entire life. You gotta grasp that and get out there. And that was part of the reason too. I was like, let's just freaking do this, man. Worst case scenario is I'd have to go and get a different job, but I didn't really let that in the back of my head. I was just like, that's not going to happen. And then once I went on my own, now I'm like, oh no, that's a terrible idea.
That's a terrible idea.
What was I thinking? And I really laughed because like, dude, I was like selling, like I said, coat racks and feeders, like dog feeders I was making and little mason jar holders, all of this. And like, I wasn't bringing in any money, but I was working a shit ton. Like I'd go to work, come home, work in the evenings, work on the weekends to do this. And like looking back, like not that long ago, but I was like, I wasn't bringing any money and I just said, screw it. And like quit my job and started doing this. And like my wife gets scared sometimes because like when I get committed to things, sometimes I turn into a psycho. And I did turn into a psycho. I was just like really, really focused on doing what I had to do. And then I'll put that pressure on her sometimes. And even now I still do that, which I'm trying to work on that because it's not, she's awesome. She's very busy. She's getting her master's degree. She has a important job, a mom. So sometimes I've realized like if things aren't working out and I can't figure it out for some reason, I get mad and kind of like I'm a jerk to her, and I got to work on that.
Yeah. But like again, like I think as the entrepreneur, it's like all of it, especially when you're working from home and all that good stuff. It's all of it.
You just got to really like just kind of look deep into yourself and be willing to accept your doubts or failures and what you need to change, and not just be arrogant and think you rule the world.
It is, but at the same time, like it's that awareness and making sure that you're paying attention to the people that matter. But there's that driven thing inside you that's like it's that beast, right? It's the beast that has you like focused in being a psycho about it because it's like failure's not an option.
Yep.
And I love how it's like, it used to be like the worst thing that could happen would be I'd just go get another job. And now it's like, now I realize how horrible that would be.
That is literally the worst.
That is literally the worst thing that could happen.
Before
I know, for real. And what I love, because I talk about this at a great deal for the audience people that are sitting there in jobs and they want, like you and me were at one point, that are sitting and thinking about starting a business. And, I'm very, all of the guests I have on, we talk about that pain, that struggle, the uncertainty, the drive, the worry, all of it. But every single guest I've had on has said, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So
Keep at it.
keep at it. Keep at it. It's going out and making your difference in the world.
Yeah. And don't judge people.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. You have no idea who people are. You sit and you have no idea until you sit and you open up a conversation. And this is just even going back to when I started my business. I was really struggling. I was 6 months into my business, and from the boot camp, I talk about all about like today we talked about inward and outward. Like when I'm inward, I'm thinking about my quota and not making money and all those kind of things. Well, I've taught for years how to sell the right way, how to serve. When you're selling, you're serving at the highest level, and that's from that outward mindset. If I'm thinking about you the whole entire time, and I'm asking questions about how I can help you or what's going on, and I can make it abundantly clear how I can help you, whether it's me selling you something or me giving you a recommendation or a connection to a friend of mine, or whatever that case, whatever solution that is. That to me is truly. It's truly selling and doing it the right way. But when I started my business, like just like you, I'm sitting and I'm thinking about like, I need to make money. I need to pay my bills. Like and so every meeting I was going to, it was like, where's the sale here? How can I find this? How can I squeeze blood out of the turnip or shake, I got this image of like grabbing somebody and like shaking them upside down and see like the change fall out of their pockets is the kind of the thing, right? And it's like, I then hit this wall and was struggling, and I realized that the way that I was being was I would take anything, like I was in this way of being of like thinking more about me than I was outside and thinking about the people that I'd be serving.
And I did the exact same thing, like especially in the beginning, like, well, this would have been like January, so not that long ago, but especially in the beginning, I was so like focusing on like making the sale and trying to make money.
Yeah.
And it was just very consuming my brain. But once you like realize that what's more important is branding your business and making sure that you can serve the person properly.
Yes.
The rest comes away, like there's been, a few people that, wanted work from me. And in the beginning, I'd like come down, hundreds of dollars to get it and this and that. And now like I've realized like, I can't do that because I'm trying to, put a stamp on where I'm at and my quality.
Yep.
So when I come down and then I go and buy cheap Amazon legs or things like that, like I started doing in the beginning, it takes that pride out of it for me.
Yep.
And I just need to realize that like I can't serve everyone, and that's okay.
Yes.
But now I try to find people who can, because I want them to be happy. I want them to get, I want to work with them and be respectful of their budget. And if I'm not the person to, take care of them, I'm going to see if I can find someone to help you,
I was working with this consultant. There was a client once, and she was taking me through what her sales process was, or what her process of working with a client was. And she was like, she was really down on herself because it wasn't working and she wasn't gaining as many clients as she wanted. But the main thing was that her process wasn't her product, her coaching service wasn't helping the people. And I was like, what do you think is preventing you from actually helping people? And she was like, well, the most important part of the process is to do these first two things here when I'm onboarding people to really understand their business and how I can serve them. But she's like, the people I'm talking to don't have time for that and they want to skip that. And so I do. I'm like, so if you know that by you skipping this 100% of the time, you're going to fail for them and they're going to waste their money, why don't you say that?
Right.
Hey, we can skip this if you want, but you might as well just give me a check and I'll just leave. And we're never going to talk to each other again because, or just save your money because it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I don't know why people
this is my process.
That.
You get nervous because it's that scarcity mindset of just the same way, the reason why you went and bought the Amazon legs.
Right.
You knew that you have a higher quality standard and it even took the joy out of you for the pride of making that product. But because that person balked at the price, you found a way to make it cheaper. Same thing from the whether it's price or time,
Hmm.
because those are the two people's two commodities, two most valuable commodities, right? Time is far more valuable than money because you'll never get it back. You can never make more of it.
For sure.
You can never quantify it.
For sure.
And so like when someone's like, oh, I don't have, oh, we'll just skip this part. I don't have time for this. They don't have any value in it. And you're like, okay, yeah, well, we'll skip that and we'll just go straight to here.
And that was me. I was taking shortcuts.
Yep.
So I'm not putting the attention to detail in it. And because, and it's not like, oh, it's not a high paying job, but it's not the quality I know I can give you, so it would really bother me. And then on top of it, if you call me, I'm not going to be routing in C channel. I'm not going to be putting a bunch of threaded inserts. I'm going to, flatten a slab, flip it over, throw some legs, a little cheap finish, and away you go. Well, you call me in a year and say, hey, my table broke, my leg popped off. I don't want that on me.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't want that. Leave me a bad review or whatever it is. And again, it's back to, I know I'm not serving that customer properly.
Yep.
And I'm not saying you got to go spend $10,000 on a table, right? I'm definitely not saying that. I mean, you can, but
you look at companies that are affiliated with value or with like Apple.
mhm,
Apple, you look at is a premium product. That's the word I was looking for, like a premium value. Like it's a high end product. They never came out with a cheaper end. They never came out with a watered, like here's a crappy Apple iPhone, right? Android had so many crappy phones, so many crappy products, so many different crappy companies that made their crappiest device and put it on Android. That so many business cell phone industry, like I said, so many clients thought that Android sucked. Android didn't suck. There were some great Android phones. In fact, there were a lot of Android phones that were better than any of the Apple phones. However, as a product overall, it was watered down because they made cheaper versions.
right,
iPhone quality controlled it. Tesla, you don't have a cheaper, watered down version of Tesla. Right. You're not going to get a cheap Tesla. So it's quality. It has a certain customer base, but the customers that are in that customer base are willing to pay the price.
and it's just setting your brand on your business. The right branding right branding stamp you want to have on your business.
Yeah.
That's why they're not going to give you cheap product.
You're hand customizing furniture for somebody.
Yeah. I had a lady that she had a curved couch and she wanted this curved kind of coffee table thing. And we happened to find a slab that was curved. And thanks, Lee, if you listen to this, thank you. But it was really neat. It was a beautiful piece. You're not going to find that at a store. It's all custom, hidden joinery where you don't see things. It's just, you're not going to find that. It turned out phenomenal. She was willing to spend the extra money,
And
she left me a 5-star review, which I read this morning or read in the parking lot here. So it kind of gave me a little good anchor before I started the show.
Yes. Well, so that's, I think that's your next level, realizing that there are people out there that don't care about price. There's people out there that just want that quality.
Mm-hmm.
They want something that nobody else is going to have.
Mm-hmm.
When you're making something, nobody else is going to have that. You're not going to find another one in the store.
No. And I think people have to be, I don't know where I'm going with this, but realistic as well. As what I do is custom furniture built around you.
Yep.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm the best furniture builder in the world, because I've worked with people that think they're the best, so their shit don't stink. And I'm not going to tell you that. It's going to be quality. You're going to be very, very happy, but it's about that growth learning mindset of learning how to be better. How can I was telling you this morning, I made a countertop for a lady. I screwed it up. This finish was supposed to get sanded to 150, which is not the normal. Normally I sand to 220. Well, she ended up getting a lot of scuff marks on her countertop. And she called me very nice about it. And so I called the manufacturer and they're like, what'd you sand it to? That's the first question. I'm like, well, 220. He's like, well, you messed up. You got to go to 150. I'm like, why? He's like, because with this Rubio Monaco, you need to sand to 150 so it really soaks in there. Because the more you sand, there's wood fibers. So the more you sand, the more closing that you're closing those wood fibers.
Yeah, okay.
So he's like, you got to go back with 80 grit, 100 grit, 120 grit, water pop it, which water pop, you spray water on the wood to open up those fibers. And then you're going to scuff it out with the oil and redo it. So it sucks, but I learned from it, so now next week I'm going to, fix that. And, there's definitely companies that just say, oh, I don't know what to tell you. You're putting stuff on there. But at the end of the day, it's my screw up. And I was disappointed when she told me in myself, but at the same time, it was a great learning experience.
Absolutely.
So now I know,
Absolutely.
you know,
How do you get better? You don't learn from your successes.
yeah.
You learn from the struggle.
Yep. And the failures.
Yep.
You just can't let it knock you down so much, which is something I've drastically got better at, like I said.
And again, being the difference, a lot of it is, again, a lot, people would be like, sorry, there's nothing I can do. You taking that back, that I believe full-heartedly that will be another great experience for you, and just the testimonials that you'll get from somebody being impressed with you,
Yeah.
picking it up and taking care of it, fixing it.
Yeah. I guess now I just got to figure out where to go next. Kind of stuck trying to figure that out right now. How to sell more work, get my name out there more, and stay above the water,
Would kind of wrap it up. What are some of your dream projects that you want to do? Or what are great ways that people could engage with you if they're listening right now?
Really the thing that I think two of my main goals that I want to project into the future is doing this more of the sentimental tree service, which is, like we said, if you have a fallen tree in your yard, or you have a tree that unfortunately needs to come down, walnuts are hitting your house, something like that, that, I want to be able to take that tree from you and turn that into furniture. And 'cause to me, that's awesome. It's a story that keeps on living.
Yeah.
Trees die, eventually trees die, but
Yeah.
the furniture can keep going on. Or you get the picture taken by your tree every year and then the tree dies. That's something I really want to in my, probably, I'm not sure the year goal. I'm still working on that,
Yep.
but get that. And then also again, like I said, helping small businesses get, more clients because they have new modern custom furniture. And again, it doesn't have to be a $10,000 table, but just something that fits their brand.
Mhm.
So when client walks in, they're not like, oh man, it's like if you hire, you need windows replaced and you hire 3 contractors. You got one guy that shows up, oil's leaking all over your driveway, he's smoking a cigarette, and you got another guy that shows up in a Lamborghini, or you have another guy that shows up, work truck, kind of might be blue collar or whatever, but he might give you in that middle price. Who are you going to go with? Are you going to go with the guy in the Lamborghini or the guy whose oil is leaking all over, or the middle guy? Me, I'm that middle guy.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it, man. I could keep talking.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I say that, and it's, again, all those stories of the day, it was a day or two after I met you and you were talking about the trees. It was like I had my friend, Dr. Ruffin, that posted about how her beloved tree fell in her yard. And I was like, oh my God, hey, you need to meet Cody, because, I don't know if you guys can do anything, but, so I know whenever I see somebody posting about, or talking about how they lost their tree, where I'm going to connect them to,
And I appreciate that. We did connect, her and I. It was just, unfortunately, it was kind of a little too late at that point. The tree was already cut up, and we could slice it into cookies. So she has like little tables potentially. But I'm not sure where that's going to go. So
yeah. So, and again, it's important, if I would have saw that before that, or I met you before, it's like one of those things, but, it's the reticular activation system. You know what that is?
No.
Okay. So, this will be a great way to end the episode. So for everybody, so the reticular activation system is our human filter. And so there's so much going on in the world at any possible time. Like even in this room right now, there's an infinite amount of possibilities, and our minds can only consume a finite amount of things. And so what we do is we delete, distort, and we generalize information. So like parts of what's going on right now, you won't even remember later on, right? It's just deleted. It doesn't make any sense. Like it's not important to you. You're probably going to mostly remember the conversation and not really what Cam's doing behind the
I was actually thinking of that when you said that.
Until you put your awareness to it, and then you look over and you're like seeing what he's doing, right? And then you're not seeing what I'm doing.
Right.
So there's only so many things that we can capture in our minds. And so what tells us is what's important is the reticular activation system. It's a little thing that's like right about there at the stem of your of your spinal cord, and that it captures your frame, the way you think, your language, and signals to you what is important and what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. So have you ever bought a brand new car and you've never seen that car before, but now all of a sudden you see it everywhere?
Yeah.
Was that car not there before?
Never.
You're the trendsetter,
I was
right?
the first one to buy it.
You bought it and then everybody bought it the next day. It just was never, it was always there. It just never was important to you.
Yep.
Now you have one. For me, I started riding a Harley and I didn't think that anybody in Brighton rode Harleys. And then when I started riding it, it was like, now I hear motorcycles ride by my house every single day. I saw all the bikes, the bikes all parked around town. I'm like, damn, I live in a biker town. I didn't even know it.
You never heard it before.
I never heard it before. It wasn't important to me. It was nothing in my brain says like, pay attention to the motorcycles riders.
Yeah. And that's an important thing to embrace.
Yeah.
Pay attention to those things.
Pay attention.
Awareness.
But like, what is, have you, like tuning forks? Have you heard of like if you have a tuning fork?
Sounds familiar, but
like it's for like musicians and stuff.
Okay.
I'm not a musician. I'm a horrible singer.
Actually, that was my original dream, was to play drums.
Play drums? See, I want to be a drummer so bad.
Now it sits in my basement in cases. But I won't give it up because there's a lot of memories.
Oh my God. So did you play?
Yeah, I used to. I was in a band. They're actually in Grand Rapids, Overdrive Orchestra, and in Heartland, and they're doing well. But that was kind of my original dream. That's why I was like, I'm never going to go to college. I'm just going to be a famous musician. And real quickly, I learned I got to work more, and things happened in my life, and I wasn't really interested in that. But yeah, I loved it. I loved playing drums, and that was a huge passion for me. Teenager years.
Yeah. That's super cool. I've always wanted to play the drums. I failed the band test in elementary school. They told me that they'd let me in band if I really wanted to do it and I really wanted to buy an instrument, but like I was probably not musically inclined to do it. I probably shouldn't have listened to that. I probably should have bought drums anyway. I bought my son a drum set when he was a little kid. Like whatever.
Well, next time I'll bring you like a little kitty drum set.
I can't even remember the point of that was as far as like the music thing.
I think that was the closure.
That was the closure. Tuning forks. That was my whole point. Tuning forks. So like if you have a tuning fork and you hit it, the tuning fork that has the same vibrations will also ring. They'll start ringing. So anything that's like, and it's the same thing, like what we've been talking about all this time about the people. And all of a sudden now you're an entrepreneur and you're meeting all these other certain types of like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
You're now in the same tune and the same vibrations as those people. I would be willing to bet that if you would have met them 5 years ago, that you probably wouldn't have had as in-depth conversations as
I would have no interest meeting them 5 years ago.
Right.
Like I've always been like, this is my little group of friends. I don't need anyone else in my life. I'm happy where I'm at, and things changed. And now I'm like, not that I was like completely closed-minded to the world. I wasn't aware, I wasn't aware that like, oh wow, there's like a lot of great people out there, and I don't have to just have a couple people in my life.
Yep.
So it's just kind of eye-opening.
Well, and seeing and describing, like coming home, you're like kind of beer was always just kind of a part of life or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's part it was just part of life.
It was always, I'd say, like my wife, this is who I am.
This is who I am. And that's how. It's even like you used an I am statement. This is who I am.
I would always
like
say, this is who I am, especially I'd start getting angry, whatever. This is who I am. But now I realize it's not who I am.
Yes.
It's what controlled who I was.
And as soon as you start changing things you look at, you start changing the way you look at things. That filter, the reticular activation system, starts shifting the things that are important to you.
Well, like I said, man, like, a few years ago, it was always like, I never want to get rid of beer. Or, I'd like to get up early and work out, and I'd do it once, but now it's like consistent. Is it every day? No, but it's, 4+ days a week, or, it was 20 degrees and I went for a run yesterday and it sucked, but hey, I felt great when I was done, so
yeah,
it's just the consistency and putting in the reps. Cause I learned that, especially to be a business owner, I need to take care of myself first. I need to take care of myself, because if not, it's just too much BS going on. And I don't know, that just seems to be what works for me.
It's like they even tell you when you're on the airplane to put the oxygen mask on first until you can't help anybody else until you're helping yourself.
Hmm.
And if you put helping other people before helping yourself, bad things really start to happen. You start falling apart.
Yeah.
If you ever look at
Hmm.
caregivers, people that take care of people, like my mom took care of my grandma up until she died. Most caregivers fall in worse health than the person they're taking care of.
Really?
They're putting all their soul and attention into making sure taking care of this person that has whatever ailment they're taking care of. They're putting that person so first that they're ignoring the signs that they're not getting enough sleep, that they're not eating on time, that they're eating bad stuff, that they're, all these different things, that they're putting a strain on their body by lifting their loved one over and over again.
Right.
But they're doing it based off the love of taking care of this person. And then most of the time they either die before or have these ailments that put them in worse
Wow,
health.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
Caregivers. Yeah, it's not a selfish thing. It's just you have to take care of yourself to take care of the people
Everybody
who come
else.
first. Yeah.
Exactly. So, man, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
This has been awesome, man. Cody, thank you again for coming
I
down.
appreciate you having me.
Thank you for this. I can't wait to hang it up and put it in my office. I need a new sign in my office, so I'm super pumped up.
Well, there you go, man.
Thanks a lot.
Until next time.